Welcome to Creation in the 21st Century. I'm your host, Carl Ball, founder and director of the Creation Evidence Museum in Glen Rose, Texas. We have a palace of dinosaurs. In fact, that's the title to the program. It's part 2, Palace of Dinosaurs, part 2. Here we are in the replication of the Ahasuerus Palace, Esther's story, Shushan the Palace, and it's filled with dinosaurs. Is that legitimate? We have pterodactyls flying overhead. We have dinosaurs in the balcony. We have an incredible dinosaur here, a big Stegosaurus type, Triceratops. Stegosaurus could get about this big, but he had plates on his back. What in the world are these dinosaurs doing here? Don't miss today's program. Call a friend, because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Let me tell you what they're doing here. I have a special guest, Dr. Tom Sharp. Dr. Sharp, it's a pleasure to have you on the program again.
Glad to be back, brother.
Now, you are an academician. You spent years in science instruction, science education at the professional, secular level. In fact, you were administrator of science curricula, I think, in the state of Oklahoma.
That's right. I was the chairperson of the science department in 2 different schools. I've been teaching biology, anatomy, physiology in various states, Indiana, Alabama, Oklahoma, since 1965.
A graduate of Tulane University?
Purdue University.
Purdue University?
University of Oklahoma, South Fuller Seminary.
Well, I believe you told us on the other program, and we can't take for granted that all the people who watch the other program will watch all of this, or those watching this have watched the other program.
Right.
But I think everyone tuned is going to stay for all this program.
I think so.
I believe you told us that you realized in the secular community that some of the information was filtered out, was sequestered out, so that the information available didn't tell all the story of the dinosaurs.
Well, in an area that deals with origins, in the first place, that's not a scientific problem. That's the big difficulty in this discussion. The origin of life issue is not a scientific problem. The origin of the universe is not a scientific problem. Science has been superimposed into that arena as if it could explain it in some way. There's never been an origin of life research project that's ever proven anything except far too much for evolution to work. And so when you recognize that has been a deliberate takeover of the scientific reality, and then other views of origins has been deliberately removed or obviated from the discussion, it's absolute indoctrination. It's not pure science research or good open discussion for scholarly application. So the problem we're finding is one view is being offered, and we're not debating whether or not evolution is true or not. We're debating the interpretation of the evidence given by secular scientists, and it's offered as a fast, complete, vouched support for the view.
But it is far from that.
Right.
So your purpose now, the drive of your life, is to give the students and the public access to all the information.
Well, to another view. I realize we're in a multicultural setting, and we'll probably never recover from multiculturalism. What I'm trying to do is to show that we're not dealing with a scientific reality here. We're dealing with a belief system that has circumstantial support. We can't prove creation scientifically. It's a belief system. It says, in the beginning, God. I believe that with all my heart.
Yes.
And I find it very satisfying when I look at the evidence.
And dinosaurs provide a tremendous body of evidence supporting creation. For instance, just briefly, and then we want to get to all the dinosaurs today, just briefly, as we did in the last program, the olfactory gland and the brain cavity relating to it show that Albertosaurus, which was a type of Tyrannosaurus rex, and all of those supposed king, tyrant, ferocious, predatory lizards were not such at all. They didn't have the mechanism to be predators, eyes essentially on the sides of their heads like cows, etc. So they were scavengers.
That's right.
Now, let's get to some more of these wonderful creatures that you brought. Dr. Sharp, you have assembled the largest display of traveling dinosaur exhibit in existence in the world, as far as we know. Is that correct?
As far as I know, there is no dinosaur collection that is in a mobile posture like this anywhere in North America for sure. This guy right here, Dr.
Let's
Ball,
talk about this
is a Cephactinus audax. This is a fish found in the state of Kansas.
Now say it again for the audience.
Cephactinus audax, meaning sword ray.
All right.
This particular animal was 12 feet long. The reason we don't have the balance of him beyond the gill plates is because once you get back of the gill plates, everything back there are pretzels. And in a mobile museum, it doesn't work well. But this guy was in the waters that were in Kansas. I thought it was amazing. I was doing research in Kansas, and a guy walked up to me and said, "Did you know that Kansas was underwater at one time?" I said, "Well, I'll be. How did you figure that out?" Then I was down in Oklahoma doing research. The guy said, "Did you understand that Oklahoma was underwater?" I said, "You suppose it was the same water that covered Kansas?" "Well, maybe." And they said the same thing about Texas. And then I was in Europe, and they said the same thing about Europe. I think we've got overwhelming evidence that in the recent past, the world was underwater.
In fact, Dr. Sharp, there's a layer of Cretaceous limestone that we dig in, we excavate dinosaurs in, here in Texas, that runs throughout Texas, throughout Canada, throughout Central and South America, picks up again at the White Cliffs of Dover, runs throughout Europe, throughout Israel, throughout Africa, throughout Russia, throughout China, westward, runs all the way to the western seaboard of the United States, picks up again in Australia, a 4.5-foot Cretaceous layer of sedimentary deposit, proving scientifically that there was a worldwide flood.
Yeah,
so these creatures got caught there.
That's right. Look here.
Now, look at this fella. Tell us about this.
This is a Tylosaurus. It's a field name Bunker because Professor Bunker from the University of Kansas found this in the Niobrara chalk formations up near Hays, Kansas. This is the largest in this particular mosasaur. It's species named Tylosaurus, meaning knot lizard, K-N-O-T-T. We have no idea why Dr. Bunker named it knot lizard. I've asked the people at University of Kansas why that was named. They said, we don't know. I have no idea. Nevertheless, Tylosaur, this guy is a marine reptile.
Yes.
Completely marine. But we find dozens of them in the state of Kansas.
Again.
Now, how many realize there's no beachfront in Kansas? How in the world did these guys get in Kansas? Well, there was water there. A fella said, well, of course there was a Cretaceous sea. I asked him, I said, well, was the Cretaceous sea a violent, deep sea? He said, no, it was a shallow, tranquil sea. I said, well, would there be evidence there that that would form fossils? Well, maybe not. We don't know for sure that there's fossils being formed in the beds of our present oceans. And so, to me, this is an incredible evidence that there was a global flood, not just water. It was a catastrophic, earthquaking, violent thing, near nuclear. And it buried these guys and fossilized them all over the place.
Now, in order to catch this fellow, it would have to be a very voluminous, tremendous flood, because how long did you say this fellow was?
This whole animal is about 42 feet long.
42 feet long.
We have the entire animal in our collection. We just couldn't get it here today. The head will get the job done. The head is 6 foot long. This was a meat-eating monster and could have been in the kinds of animals mentioned in Job 41 called Leviathan.
Yes.
There's a phenomenon there.
Category.
Some of these animals, they have huge cavities in their skulls surrounded by incredibly 2.5 to 3.5 inch bony plate. They could have contained spatial chemicals, Dr. Ball, similar to the bombardier beetle today, that could have been mixed and then exploded through their nostrils in a very hot gaseous form, so that we have justification, believable qualification for the fact that there were animals, still are, that can mix chemicals, explode them at the boiling point of water.
And could have been a multitude of those animals, or at least a few, various kinds of various species.
That's right.
While we're on that subject,